Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll deal with a peculiar kind of a tax called as Google tax. Yes, taxes imposed on companies like Google, that is what we are going to cover. Have you ever heard about this term? No, right? We'll discuss it today in great detail. Now, the notes which I will be using in our today's session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ETS Live. And while you're at it, downloading the notes, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. Okay, so let us start by understanding the reason why are we covering Google tax today in a video that is in the year 2026. Now, recently, as you can understand, India signed a trade deal with US and the facts relating to this trade deal was published by White House. Now, this fact sheet that the White House published, it mentioned many things. It said that India has agreed to remove taxes that it imposed on digital services, particularly by non-resident companies. Now, this fact on the fact sheet was a bit problematic. Why problematic? Because first of all, India had already removed these taxes last year in 2025, even before the negotiations for the trade deal began. So why did US publish this kind of a detail in its fact sheet? Now, US, what it wanted to do, it wanted India to unilaterally agree that it won't reimpose such taxes in the future, and this becomes problematic. Why it becomes problematic, or for first of all, what is a Google tax? This all will cover in our today's video. So let us understand before what is a Google tax. It becomes essential for understand how taxation actually works for non-resident companies, right? So for example, companies who are operating in India can be divided into two categories. First are resident companies or domestic companies, right? So let me change the word. First are the kind of companies which are called as domestic companies, and another category is the companies called as foreign companies. Now let us first of all deal with taxation that are imposed on domestic companies. Now, domestic companies, they are required to pay taxes in India on what kind of profits? On the profits that they make from their domestic operations and the profits that they make from their global operations. So let me give you an example. Suppose there are Indian IT companies like TCS and Infosys. So the taxable burden on these companies, it includes the profit that they earn from their operations in India and on all the operations that they make globally. So this is the taxation burden on Indian companies or domestic companies, that they have to pay taxes in India on all the profits that they make, be it from domestic operations, be it from global operations. Now let us understand what kind of taxes are paid by foreign companies. Here also distinction come between whether those companies are resident of India or non-resident of India. So for example, foreign companies can be divided into two categories. First are the companies who have permanent establishment in India, and the second kind of companies are the ones who do not have permanent establishment. Now, companies who do not have permanent establishment, they are not required to pay taxes in India. Understood? So these are the companies, the non-resident companies, they are not required to pay even 1 rupee of tax in India. Now things become very interesting when I talk about companies who have permanent establishment in India. You must be thinking, what is the criteria for a company to be called as a company having a permanent establishment in India? First of all, these companies needs to have physical presence in India. These companies needs to have offices, branch, or a factory in India. And the third criteria is that these places needs to have a fixed place of business. Right? So these are the criterias that a company needs to fulfill if they have a permanent establishment in India. But things do not end here. Things will get trickier. So what is the tricky aspect of this qualification I'm talking about? Now, the tricky aspect of the qualification I'm talking about is the exemption given to certain companies. What is this exemption I'm talking about? Now, if any company, if they fulfill the above criteria, so if a company fulfills the above criteria, but they only offer subsidiary services in India, then they will be treated as a company who do not have a permanent establishment. They do not have a permanent establishment in India. So those companies who offer subsidiary services in India, but they fulfill the above criteria, these are the companies, they will be treated as a companies not having a permanent establishment, and therefore they are not required to pay taxes in India. And this becomes very interesting. Now let me talk about few foreign companies who operate in India. You may have heard about them, called as Google, called as Amazon, called as Netflix. Do you think these companies pay taxes in India? You may agree that yes, these companies have to pay taxes in India because they have offices in India. For example, Google has offices in Hyderabad, they have offices in Gurgaon. Amazon have offices in Hyderabad, they have offices in Bangalore, right? Similarly, what if Netflix has an office in Mumbai? So, will these companies pay taxes in India according to your definition? If you think they pay taxes in India, you're very wrong. Why? These companies do not pay taxes in India. So, why do these companies not pay taxes in India? To understand this, you have to understand few important details. Now, let us pick up an example called as Amazon. What does Amazon do in India? They deliver goods and services, right? They have big warehouses where they keep items so that when you order them, they can deliver it as quickly as possible. Similarly, they offer digital payments. How does Amazon offer digital payments? They have their services called as Amazon Pay, right? So why aren't they paying taxes in India? The reason is, according to Amazon, all of these services that they offer, they are subsidiary services. They are not the core services that the Amazon is known for. What is Amazon best known for? Amazon is best known for hosting an e-commerce website or hosting an e-commerce mobile app. So according to Amazon, this is their core function. And the servers, wherever they are located, that country would be considered as a permanent establishment of Amazon. On the other hand, when they are delivering goods, when they are delivering or when they are maintaining warehouses and when they are providing digital payments, these are subsidiary services. Why subsidiary services? Because these services are offered on their e-commerce website. So core function of Amazon becomes the website or the app that they are hosting, not the subsidiary services they are providing, which is provided through offices in India. So even if they fulfill these criteria that I have mentioned, but they will qualify for this exemption because they are offering only subsidiary services in India and not core services. And this thing is equally true even for companies like Google. What does kind of services Google provide in India? Google provide online advertisements. Google provide you YouTube. Google provides you maps, which helps you navigate. But are these services core services of Google? No. Core service for Google is the Google search engine that they have, and they are offering these services as a part of search engine. So it is the location of the servers of Google which determines Google is a permanent resident of which country. Google has search engines located in Ireland. and therefore Google is required to pay taxes not in India, not in US, but where its servers are located for search engine, which is in Ireland. And you'll be surprised to know Ireland imposes 0% taxes. So Google gets away by paying taxes because it uses this formula, which is a not an Indian formula but a global formula to determine whether a company is having a permanent establishment or not having a permanent establishment in India. Understood? So this is what Google tax is all about. Now India, although it has operations of these many companies, they were not paying taxes, and it led to denial of thousands of crores of taxes which the Indian government could have made. So Indian government came up with a solution. Indian government started to impose what is called as an equalization levy. Equalization levy, the formal name of the tax, it is also informally called as a Google tax. Now you must be thinking, what is an equalization levy? Equalization levy is a tax on digital services that are offered on advertisement on e-commerce services, so as to equalize the tax burden that is imposed on a resident company and a non-resident company. Imagine a scenario if this Google tax had not been there. Then a domestic company would have to pay the taxes on the income that it makes by delivery of goods and services. On the other hand, a non-resident company would get away by paying taxes, or they would not be required to pay taxes. So this would create a disparity between these two countries, right? So to bring both of these kind of companies on an equal pedestal, the government introduced equalization levy, which is also informally called as a Google tax. Now, how is this equalization levy imposed in India? This is a very important development that you have to understand as far as UPSC exam is concerned. Now, for the first time, equalization levy was imposed in India was through Finance Act of the year 2016. When is Finance Act brought? Finance Act is brought with every year's budget. As you may understand, to impose any taxes, you need permission of which entity? You need permission of the Parliament. So when you have to impose any new tax, be it equalization levy, you also need to take permission from the Parliament, and you get it through the passage of Finance Act in the Lok Sabha. Now, Finance Act imposed equalization levy. So what were the companies covered? This you need to understand. The companies covered under equalization levy were foreign companies who do not have permanent establishment in India. Who do not have permanent establishment in India. And what was the scope of taxation? On what activities was the tax imposed? Tax was imposed early on only or it was imposed on digital advertisements. So only on digital advertisements. Through Finance Act 2016, the government imposed Google tax, also called as equalization levy. Now, on which companies were these tax applicable? That is also very important. So the companies who were delivering or they were receiving payments for digital ads which amount to more than 1 lakh rupees every year, they were required to pay taxes, but these payments have to be done only when it is between a business and another business. So for example, let us consider I am an influencer in Instagram and I'm paying Instagram to give ads for my reels, my personal reels. Will those be taxable? The answer is no, because I am paying money to Instagram to put ads for my own personal use. But let me suppose I start a company and I'm paying Instagram, I'm paying Google to give ads for my company. That transaction would be a business, would be between a business that is my company and another business that is Google or Instagram. So those will be taxable, and only those payments which amounts to more than 1 lakh rupees every year, only those will be subjected to equalization levy, which was under Finance Act 2016. Now you must be thinking, how much taxes will they have to pay? That is also very important. Now they were required to pay 6% of the payment as equalization levy. So suppose if I make 1 lakh rupee payment to Google to put my company's ad every year, then Google would be required to pay 6% of the payment, that is 6% of 1 lakh rupees as a tax, that is 6,000 rupees, right? But now changes happened when government bought Finance Act of the year 2020. What were the changes made by the government by Finance Act 2020? That is also very important. Now the companies covered were kept as same as before. That means only foreign companies who do not have a permanent establishment, only they were required to pay equalization levy even after the Finance Act 2020. Now the second question comes on what kind of services will these companies be required to pay taxes? What is the scope of the taxation? Now the scope of taxation was imposed like earlier on digital ads, but it was also expanded on delivery of services by use of e-commerce. So for example, Netflix, who gives you access to movies and TV shows, when you make the payment, that is subscription, that is a kind of service Netflix is offering. So that will be subjected to equalization levy after Finance Act 2020. Similarly, if you book a hotel using foreign companies like Agoda, then also you'll have to pay taxes, or not you, but the companies would be required to pay taxes. So supply of goods and services or delivery of goods and services using e-commerce, that will be the subject of taxation under the new equalization levy, which was imposed in Finance Act 2020. Now, what is the applicability? The applicability was same for digital ads. That is, the digital ads to be taxable have to be more than 1 lakh rupees every year and has to be between a business to business. But on e-commerce, any company who has a turnover of more than 2 crore rupees annually, they will be required to pay the equalization levy. Now the next part comes the tax rate. Tax rate was kept same as 6% of payment for digital ads, but for delivery of goods and services through e-commerce, the e-commerce companies would be required to pay 2% of the commission that they earn on e-commerce delivery of goods and services. So the taxation regime, to summarize, after the Finance Act 2020 dealt with two kinds of companies. Companies who were providing digital advertisements. These companies would be required to pay 6% of the payment that they receive in exchange of these advertisements as equalization levy. And companies who were providing goods and services through e-commerce website or any kind of platform, they would be required to pay 2% of the commission that they earn from delivery of goods and services as equalization levy. Understood? So this was the summary of our discussion. Now let us move forward. Do you think these kind of equalization levy exists today in 2026? The answer is no. Because last year, in 2025, government proposed a change that it is going to remove the 6% equalization levy that it levies on delivery of digital advertisements. And this followed a years before decision which was made through Finance Act 2024, which removed 2% equalization levy on e-commerce services. So to come back to our summary, this particular taxation was removed through Finance Act of the year 2024, and this taxes on digital services, this one was removed by Finance Act of 2025. Now, why do you think government removed this? Government basically preempted any kind of dispute that it might face when it is dealing with US to sign a trade deal. Now let us come back to a point which is more contentious. US is asking India to unilaterally commit to US that it is not going to impose equalization levy style of taxes in the future, and this becomes problematic on multiple grounds. Why it is problematic on multiple grounds? Yes, we decided not to impose taxes right now, but don't you think it is a sovereign right of India to keep on imposing taxes in the future? Who should be the US to deny us this sovereign right of taxation? First problem that is we are going to face is the unilateral framing of this proposal. Now, US came up with a proposal that India should commit that it is not going to impose taxes on any kind of digital services offered by non-resident companies in India. But you also need to understand, even Indian companies who are operating in US, they also give or they also deliver many kinds of goods and services through digital medium, be it Infosys, be it TCS. They make a huge amount of money by delivering of online services in US. What if tomorrow US starts to impose taxes on Indian companies, and if India is unilaterally committed, if it is not going to impose taxes, in what ground will India retaliate against this kind of a measure with US? So this unilateral framing of the proposal became problematic because only India is going to give up the right of taxes, not US. Had this been the two-way street, it would have been somewhat more acceptable. But this is not the only problem. The other problems include the future precedents. Now, if India has taken a stand unilaterally that it is not going to impose taxes on any companies from US, other countries with which we are trying to sign trade deals in the future, they'll also want us to give this kind of a concession. So it might create a future precedents that India or Indian government would have to negotiate with other countries. And the third problem is that taxation as a matter of policy is a sovereign right. Sovereign right means the country is free to impose taxes on its own economy. So when you kind of give up this right on an agreement signed with US, it is US who is calling the shots on who or what kind of goods and services we can impose taxes in India. So this is the third problem, that it denies India the sovereign right of taxation. Understood? So this is why this kind of a situation became problematic, and while understanding the situation, we also understood what are the qualifications that a company needs to fulfill in order to pay taxes in India. That is, a domestic company would pay taxes on all the profits that they make, be it operations of India or be it operations in US, UK, etc. On the other hand, only those companies who have a permanent establishment, the foreign companies, only they are required to pay taxes. And on the other hand, the companies who do not have permanent establishments, they are not required to pay taxes in India. And the qualification of permanent establishment, most importantly, has an exception. If a company it's delivering only subsidiary services, then they won't be considered as a company having a permanent establishment, even despite the fact they have offices, branch offices, factories operating in India. And this I can explain you with an example of companies like Amazon, because they deliver goods and services in India. They maintain big warehouses where they store these goods and services, and they also offer digital payments. But according to this definition, all of these work done by Amazon in India, these are subsidiary services. What is the core service of Amazon? It's hosting the e-commerce website and app. And the servers where these e-commerce websites and app, the data is stored, that is where Amazon would be considered to have a permanent establishment. Understood? So this is what is all about of all the taxes that we have covered. Now, before we end this video, there is a very important announcement right now, that is on 13th of February, we are offering important discounts on all the courses on StudyIQ, most importantly being the GS Foundation P2I batches. In Foundation P2I batches, I take economy lectures. So in economy, we'll deal with all kinds of taxes, be it equalization levy, GST, income tax, corporate tax, you name it, everything is covered. Now, one important thing, if you have to consider our courses, right now we are offering best discounts that are offered 50% off, and if you use the code ATS Live, you are going to get even more discounts. That is the maximum discounts available on this platform. And the sale which is right now going on, the rank booster sale, which offers 50% off plus discounts on ATS Live, you're going to get it only up till tomorrow, that is 14th of February. So please do not wait. Take admissions as soon as possible. We are offering separate batches for students who are looking to give exams in 2027 or 2028. So decide accordingly. Right? So this is all from my side for today. And the question that appeared in UPSC exam in 2018, this was exactly on the lines of the discussions we had, please try to solve it and do let me know in the comment section what is the right answer to this question. And if you want to download the notes, yes, the entire annotated part also, you can go to this particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel also. Okay, so this is all from my side for today's discussion. Please have a very good day. We'll see each other again quite soon.